The bridge of the Krythian warship Eternal Dominance thrummed with the familiar vibration of charged weapon systems. Admiral Vek'tar stood at the command platform, his forearms folded across his armored chest, watching the view screen with predatory satisfaction. The vessel ahead was small, barely the size of a Krythian frigate, and it drifted through space with the unassuming grace of prey that didn't yet know it was being hunted. "Another species wandering where they don't belong," Sub-Commander Rethkal muttered from the tactical station. "This sector was claimed by the Empire 2 cycles ago." Vek'tar's mandibles clicked in amusement. 47 species had learned this lesson before. 47 civilizations had bent their knees when faced with Krythian superiority. This would be the 48th. The ship bore markings he didn't recognize. Angular script in a language the translation matrix couldn't immediately parse. Human, the database finally suggested, a species barely registered in galactic records. Unknown military capacity, unknown technological level, unknown threat assessment. Unknown meant weak. Unknown meant irrelevant. "Open a channel," Vek'tar commanded. Standard dominance protocol. The communications officer, a younger Krythian named Sevkan, activated the transmission. The screen flickered, awaiting response from the human vessel. Vek'tar straightened, preparing the speech he'd given dozens of times before, the speech that had brought entire worlds to their knees. But when the connection established, something changed in the air of the bridge. The face that appeared on the screen was human, a woman with dark hair pulled back from sharp features. Her eyes the color of Earth's ancient ice. She wore a uniform of deep blue and silver, crisp and immaculate. She didn't speak. She simply looked at Vek'tar with an expression that made his primary heart skip a beat. "This is Admiral Vek'tar of the Krythian Imperial Fleet," he began, forcing confidence into his voice. "You have entered claim space without authorization. Your vessel will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." The woman tilted her head slightly. When she spoke, her voice cut through the transmission like a blade through flesh. "No." One word, delivered with such absolute certainty that Vek'tar felt his secondary arms twitch involuntarily. Around the bridge, crew members shifted uncomfortably. Sevkin's scales rippled with visible unease. "You misunderstand your position," Vek'tar said, his voice hardening. "The Krythian Empire has conquered 47 species. Your ship is surrounded by 12 warships, each capable of reducing your hull to atomic dust. You will comply, or you will die." The woman's expression didn't change. She leaned forward slightly, and Vek'tar found himself instinctively leaning back. "I am Captain Elena Reeves of the vessel Harbinger," she said. Each word was measured, controlled, carrying weight that shouldn't have been possible from someone facing certain annihilation. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet from this sector and return to your claimed territories. After that, I will consider your presence an act of war." Rethkal's mandibles gaped in disbelief. Several bridge officers exchanged confused glances. Vek'tar felt heat rising beneath his scales. This human, this tiny, insignificant creature from an unknown world, was issuing him an ultimatum. "You dare threaten the Krythian Empire?" Vek'tar's voice rose to a roar. "You command a single ship. We are 12. Our weapons are charged. Our shields are impenetrable. What possible delusion makes you think you have any authority here?" Elena Reeves smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. 20 seconds, she said. Vek'tar slammed one of his primary fists against the console. "Tactical, target their engines. Prepare a warning shot. Show this arrogant primitive what Krythian firepower means." "Sir," Sevkin said, his voice trembling. "Their power signatures are increasing. I'm reading energy levels that shouldn't be possible for a ship that size." "Background radiation," Vek'tar snapped. "Fire the warning shot." The Eternal Dominance shuddered as a plasma lance erupted from its primary cannon. The brilliant orange beam streaked across the void, passing within meters of the Harbinger's hull. Any other species would have panicked. Any other captain would have begun desperate pleas for mercy. Elena Reeves checked something on a display out of view, then looked back at Vek'tar. 5, she said calmly. "What?" Vek'tar demanded. 4. "Sir, the energy readings are spiking." Sevkan shouted. "I've never seen anything like this. Their ship is 3. Vektar's confidence finally cracked. Wait, 2. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Vektar roared. 1. Elena Reeves didn't blink. I gave you a chance. The Harbinger moved. Later, Krythian analysts would spend months trying to understand what happened in the next 4 seconds. The human vessel executed a maneuver that violated every known principle of inertia and momentum. It simply appeared in a new position, as if space itself had folded around it. From its hull, weapons emerged, sleek, dark cylinders that glowed with internal fire. 3 Krythian destroyers ceased to exist, not exploded, not damaged, simply erased from existence as weapons of impossible precision and power struck them simultaneously. The energy release was so perfectly controlled that the other Krythian ships weren't even touched by the blast waves. It was surgical, deliberate, a demonstration. The bridge of the eternal dominance descended into chaos. Alarms shrieked. "Officers!" shouted conflicting reports. Sevkan's voice cut through the noise, high and panicked. "3 destroyers gone! No debris field! They're just gone!" "Sir, what are we facing?" Vektar stared at the view screen, where Elena Reeves sat in her captain's chair, her expression unchanged. His 4 hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, but pride, the pride that had conquered 47 species, kept him rooted in place. "What are you?" The question emerged as barely more than a whisper. Elena's eyes narrowed. "I'm a human, Admiral. Did your intelligence reports not mention us?" "Our records show humans as an uncontacted species," Vek'tar said, his voice shaking. "Pre-warp technology, confined to a single world. No military threat. Your records are outdated," Elena said. "We've been watching you, Admiral Vek'tar. For 37 years we've been watching the Krythian Empire expand. We've studied every species you've conquered. We've analyzed every battle you've fought. We know your tactics, your weapons, your weaknesses." She paused. "You know nothing about us." Vektar's mind raced. 37 years. Bus. That predated the Krythian expansion into this sector. That meant humans had been observing them from the beginning, hidden, silent, waiting. "You're scouts," he said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "That ship isn't a colony vessel. It's a warship." "Partially correct," Elena said. "The Harbinger is a diplomatic vessel. A warship would be significantly more dangerous." "Impossible," Vek'tar growled, though his conviction was gone. "No species develops this level of technology in isolation. You must have allies. You must have—" "We developed everything you see alone," Elena interrupted. "Humanity has a unique perspective on advancement, Admiral. We don't conquer to feel powerful. We innovate because we must. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other, learning every possible way to wage war. Then we looked at the stars and decided we needed to be ready for what we'd find there." She stood from her chair, and somehow, through the view screen, across the void of space, Vek'tar felt the full weight of her presence. "We found you," Elena continued. "The Krythian Empire, proud and mighty, crushing species after species. We watched you destroy the Valkyrie homeworld. We saw you enslave the Toth. We recorded your genocide of the Prin because they refused to surrender." Her voice dropped to something cold and ancient. "We decided you would never do that to Earth." "You're bluffing," Vek'tar said, but his voice cracked. "One ship cannot stand against an empire." "You're right." Elena touched a control on her armrest, "which is why I didn't come alone." The view screen split into multiple feeds. Vek'tar's blood turned to ice. The feeds showed Krythian space, core systems, military stations, fleet assembly yards, and in every single image, human ships hung in the darkness. Not small diplomatic vessels like the Harbinger. Massive warships bristling with weapons, their hulls painted with Earth's blue and white. "We've been in your space for 3 years, Elena said. "We've mapped every installation, every trade route, every military asset. We've cracked your communications. We've infiltrated your networks. We know where your Emperor sleeps, Admiral." Sevkan made a choking sound. Vek'tar's mandibles trembled so violently that Vek'tar could hear them clicking. "This is impossible," Vek'tar whispered. Our detection systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. Were, Elena corrected. They were the most advanced. Until they encountered human stealth technology. Until they faced a species that spent centuries hiding from their own surveillance states, developing counter-detection methods that your scientists haven't even theorized yet.
Vek'tar's mind struggled to process the implications.
The Krythian Empire, the dominant force in this sector of space, had been completely blind to a human presence for years. Every strategic plan, every military calculation, all of it was based on incomplete information, on a lie. "What do you want?" he asked, hating how defeated he sounded. Elena's expression softened slightly, but the steel never left her eyes. "I want you to understand something, Admiral. You asked what authority I have. Let me tell you who I really am." She touched another control, and her uniform's collar shifted, revealing additional insignia. Vek'tar's translation matrix worked frantically. "I am Fleet Admiral Elena Reeves," she said, "Supreme Commander of Earth's 3rd Expeditionary Force, member of the Human Defense Council. I speak with the full authority of my government and my species." She leaned forward. "And I'm telling you that humanity's patience with the Krythian Empire has reached its end." "You would declare war on us?" Vek'tar demanded. "Your species number's in the billions, ours number in the trillions, spread across hundreds of worlds. You cannot win a war of attrition." "We don't intend to fight a war of attrition," Elena said. "We've studied your empire, remember? We know that 47 conquered species serve you not out of loyalty but out of fear. We know your economy depends on tribute from subjugated worlds. We know your military is spread thin, maintaining control over populations that hate you." Her smile returned, sharp as broken glass. "What do you think happens when those species learn the Krythian Empire can be beaten? When they see their mighty conquerors flee from a single human ship?" Vek'tar felt the trap closing around him. If he retreated, word would spread. The Empire's image of invincibility would shatter. Rebellions would erupt across dozens of worlds. But if he stayed, if he fought, he looked at the remains of his 3 destroyers. At the impossible human ship that had destroyed them in seconds. At Elena Reeves, who sat in her chair with the calm certainty of someone holding all the cards. "You're giving me a choice," he said slowly. "I'm giving you the same choice you gave 47 species," Elena replied. "Surrender or die. The difference is, I mean it. And I have the power to enforce it," Vek'tar's pride screamed at him. Forearms clenched into fists. His ancestors had built an empire through strength and conquest. Generations of Krythian warriors had never backed down, never shown weakness. But as he looked at Elena Reeves, he saw something that terrified him more than death. He saw certainty, absolute, unshakable certainty. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't desperate. She was giving him one chance to survive because her morality demanded it, not because she needed him to accept. "What are your terms?" The words tasted like poison. "Withdraw from this sector immediately," Elena said. "Release all conquered species within your borders. Allow independent observers to verify the cessation of hostile actions. Agree to non-aggression treaties with humanity and all former Krythian subjects." She paused. "Or refuse, and learn why humanity survived 10,000 years of trying to destroy itself." "The Emperor will never accept these terms," Vek'tar said. "Then I'll deliver them to the Emperor personally," Elena replied. "My fleet knows where he is." Refkal stepped forward, his voice desperate. "Admiral, we should call for reinforcements. The 7th Fleet is only 3 jumps away. If we can hold position until—" "No," Vek'tar said quietly. "Sir?" Vek'tar looked at his sub-commander, at the crew around the bridge, scales pale with fear, at the view screen showing Elena Reeves and the terrible truth she represented. "Send a priority transmission to the 7th Fleet," he said. "Tell them to hold position and await further orders." "Admiral!" Rethkal's voice rose in protest. "We cannot show weakness too. Look at the tactical display." Vek'tar roared, his composure finally breaking. "Use your eyes. We lost 3 destroyers in 4 seconds. Their ship violates the laws of physics. They've been inside our space for 3 years without us detecting them." He pointed at Elena. "That human is offering us terms because her species believes in mercy, not because she needs to negotiate. If we fight, we die. If we call for reinforcements, they die too. Is that what you want? To sacrifice the 7th Fleet to maintain your pride? The bridge fell silent. Sevkan's hands trembled over his controls. Rethkal's mandibles slowly closed. Vek'tar turned back to Elena. I will relay your terms to the Emperor, but I cannot guarantee he will accept them. I know, Elena said. That's why I'm going to make this decision easier for him. She touched her controls again, and Vek'tar's view screen filled with a new image. His primary heart stopped. Hundreds of ships. Human ships, each one bristling with weapons that had just proved capable of erasing Krythian destroyers from existence. They hung in formation around the Harbinger, their hulls bearing designations and names in human script. The translation matrix identified them. Churchill, Yamato, Carthage, Spartan, Hannibal, Wellington. Names from human history, he realized. Names of warriors and battles from Earth's bloody past. This is my fleet, Elena said. The 3rd Expeditionary Force, 50 capital ships, 120 cruisers, 300 support vessels. And Admiral, these are just the ships I brought to this meeting. Vek'tar couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. His crew stared in horror at the display. Earth has 12 more fleets, Elena continued, each one comparable in size to this one. Each one equipped with technology decades ahead of anything the Krythian Empire possesses. Each one commanded by officers who've trained their entire lives for the possibility of encountering a hostile galactic power. Her voice never rose, never wavered. We hoped we'd find friends out here, Admiral. Instead, we found you, and we decided that if the galaxy was ruled by empires like the Krythian, then humanity would have to teach the galaxy a new way. By force? Vek'tar asked bitterly. By example, Elena corrected. We'll defend ourselves and others without mercy, but we won't conquer. We won't enslave. We'll show every species watching this encounter that there's an alternative to the Krythian way. She stood again, and Vek'tar saw something in her eyes he'd never expected to see in an enemy. Regret. I didn't want this to go this way, Elena said softly. When I received my orders to make first contact with the Krythian Empire, I hoped we could find common ground. I hoped your intelligence reports were wrong about what your species does to those weaker than you. She shook her head. But you opened this conversation with threats. You fired on my ship without provocation. You've proven everything Earth's analysts feared about you. What happens now? Vek'tar asked. Elena looked past him, at the bridge crew, at the Krythian officers who'd built their careers on conquest. Now you go home, she said. You tell your Emperor what happened here. You tell him that humanity is real, that we're powerful, and that we're not going anywhere. You tell him that the age of Krythian expansion is over. She paused. And you tell him that if he's wise, he'll accept our terms. Because the alternative is seeing his empire torn apart by rebellions we'll support with every resource we have. Vek'tar wanted to argue, wanted to rage, wanted to salvage some shred of Krythian dignity from this disaster. But he looked at the human fleet on his view screen, at the gap where 3 of his destroyers used to be, and knew there was nothing left to say. We will withdraw, he said finally. But this isn't over, Fleet Admiral Reeves. The Krythian Empire has survived for 10,000 years. We will not fall to one species, no matter how advanced. Admiral, empires that survive on fear alone don't last. Not against people who refuse to be afraid. You'll learn that lesson eventually. Churnger. She touched her controls one final time. Safe travels, Admiral Vek'tar. I genuinely hope the next time we meet, it's as allies rather than enemies. The transmission cut before he could respond. Vek'tar stood in the silence of his bridge, feeling the weight of 47 conquered species, trillions of Krythian citizens, and an empire's pride resting on his shoulders. Around him, his crew waited for orders, waited for their admiral to tell them what to do in the face of the impossible. Navigator, he said quietly. Set course for the capital. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. Communications. Send a priority message to the Emperor. Classification level maximum. Tell him Vek'tar paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound like cowardice. Tell him we've made contact with a new species. Tell him everything has changed. As the Eternal Dominance turned away from the human fleet, Vek'tar took one last look at the view screen. The Harbinger hung in space, small and unassuming, flanked by the massive warships of humanity's third expeditionary force. On the hull of the closest capital ship, he could see words painted in human script. The translation matrix provided the meaning: United Earthship Indomitable. Vek'tar's mandibles clicked in grim understanding. Humanity had named their warships after their virtues, their heroes, their refusal to surrender. They'd spent 10,000 years fighting themselves, learning how to wage war, preparing for this moment. And now the galaxy would learn what humans had always known: that some species couldn't be conquered, some wills couldn't be broken, some voices carried authority that transcended weapons or numbers or fear. Elena Reeves had answered the Krythian Empire's hail with humanity's first message to the stars. A message delivered not in words, but in the cold certainty of her voice, the precision of her weapons, and the unshakable resolve in her eyes. We are here. We are powerful, and we will not kneel. As the Eternal Dominance jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing the sector it had entered with such confidence, Vek'tar knew that message would echo across the galaxy. Every conquered species would hear it. Every enslaved world would know that the impossible had happened. Someone had finally said no to the Krythian Empire, and they had the strength to make it stick.